Today, I'm going to tell you the story of a man who, starting from a remote corner of Italy, rewrote the history of one of the most fascinating sports in the world. But don't think it was all easy. In fact, his journey was full of sacrifices, tragedies, and moments that could have stopped anyone else. Yet, he never stopped. In 1908, Italy was living in an era of stark contrasts and change. The country was still deeply divided, especially between the industrialized north and the rural south. For many Italians, daily life was still simple, filled with manual labor, limited transportation, and for most, a life of hard work and sacrifice. Cars, at that time, were far from common. They were still seen as a curiosity, a luxury that only a few privileged people could afford. Car races, still in their infancy, took place on public roads and makeshift tracks, attracting only a small crowd. And it's in this very context that a small businessman took his 10-year-old son to one of these races. For many, this was just a pastime. But for that boy, that day marked the beginning of something incredible. The roar of the engines, the smell of burning rubber. Everything blended into an experience that would change him forever. It was right then that the boy decided he would build the fastest racing car in the world. And that boy was Enzo Ferrari. But this isn't a story about a rich family or a man born with everything handed to him. Number Enzo Ferrari came from a small village far from the spotlight. When he started, he had neither money nor important connections. None of the things that could have paved the way for him. But all he had was an idea, a vision. In 1947, his passion and determination led him to create something never seen before, Ferrari. It wasn't just a car, it was a symbol. The car that Enzo created would become the symbol of a challenge, to prove that even the most unlikely dream can come true. Ferrari is the only brand that has been a constant presence in the Formula One Championship from 1950 onward. But what is the true secret of Ferrari? How did a man who started with nothing during one of the worst periods in history create an automotive empire? This is the story of Enzo Ferrari. Enzo Ferrari was born on February 20th, 1898 in Modena into a modest family. His love for engines started at a young age, but life was quick to throw him an unexpected curveball. At the age of 10, Enzo lost both his father and his older brother. It was a devastating moment for him. This loss didn't just hit his family emotionally, but it also triggered a financial nightmare as their business went under at that point. With no other choice, Enzo dropped out of school and started working as a mechanic in a workshop. Eventually, he even enlisted in the army during World War I to support his mother. But you know what, guys? Even amidst all this chaos, Enzo spent a lot of his time learning about how cars worked and how engineering functioned while working with the military. And luckily, after a few years, the war ended in 1918. Enzo didn't just want to be a guy who watched races from afar. No, he dreamed of being a driver. As he grew, he got closer to the world of racing, initially as a mechanic, but his competitive spirit quickly led him to become a driver himself. By the age of 22, Enzo Ferrari joined a luxury car company called Alfa Romeo as a driver, marking the beginning of his career. But it wasn't an easy road. There were plenty of ups and downs along the way. Accidents, failures, and struggles continued to haunt him, but Enzo never gave up. He never quit. Every battle made him more determined to be the best. In 1929, Enzo Ferrari decided it was time to take things further, so he founded a racing team called Scuderia Ferrari. The agreement between Alfa Romeo and Ferrari was pretty simple. Alfa Romeo would give Enzo the best and most sophisticated equipment in the country, and in return, Enzo would drive for their team, building race cars that would win championships. So, Enzo rolled up his sleeves, worked tirelessly, day in and day out to design the best racing car Italy had ever seen. And soon enough, he was so successful that he won more championships in the 1920s and 1930s than anyone could have imagined. Now tell me, guys, after winning so many championships and races, if you were Enzo, wouldn't you at least expect a raise? At the very least? Well, guess what, guys? In return, Enzo Ferrari was fired by the company because they thought it was too expensive to manage a racing car division. On top of that, he wasn't even allowed to use the Ferrari name for the next 4 years because of a non-compete clause. At that point, Enzo felt devastated, but this time, he wasn't the young guy who would let circumstances guide him. This time, he decided to take on Alfa Romeo directly and build a race car better than Alfa Romeo's luxury cars. So, he started his own company called Automotive Costruzioni. And just as he was starting to design his own cars, something tragic happened again. In 1939, German bombers flew over Poland, bombing cities and ports, including the capital, Warsaw. World War II brought together the wars in Europe and Asia, becoming the most devastating conflict in history. The Allied forces, including Great Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union, fought against the Axis, which included Germany, Italy, and Japan. Italy was bombed by both British and American forces, destroying factories and causing millions of deaths. In this environment of poverty and devastation, car racing obviously took a back seat. Yet, despite everything, Enzo found a way to survive. During the war, Enzo secured a military contract from the Italian government to produce war equipment, trying to keep his business afloat. But just when things seemed to be getting a bit better, his factory was bombed again, forcing him to move. Despite the hardships, Enzo never gave up. He didn't want to quit. While rebuilding his factory, he created a secret section to design cars, fueling his passion for racing. After the war ended in 1947, Enzo Ferrari decided to officially found Ferrari with the goal of creating the best race cars in the world. It was a pretty ambitious project, considering Italy was still struggling with poverty, but Enzo believed that a small segment of the wealthy population would be willing to appreciate and own a luxury car. With this vision and an unwavering passion, Ferrari launched the Ferrari 125S, a car that marked the beginning of a new era for the brand. The Ferrari 125S, with a 1.5-liter V12 engine, could reach speeds of 210 kilometers per hour, an extraordinary speed for 1947. But it wasn't just the speed that made it so special. The perfect combination of power and weight caught the attention of engineers around the world. Enzo Ferrari had already far surpassed Alfa Romeo, the company where he had worked, with his very first car. With this car, Ferrari started winning championship after championship, solidifying its fame. Ferrari was no longer just a race car. It was a symbol of performance and beauty, a coveted object for the wealthy all over the world. The brand became an aspiration, and Enzo's philosophy was simple: to build cars that not only won races, but were so beautiful they could be displayed in a museum. Ferrari wasn't just a car brand. It was a moving work of art, a symbol of perfect engineering. With every curve, every line, every design, Ferrari created cars that were the perfect balance between performance and, above all, beauty, becoming synonymous with perfection in motorsport and luxury. So, it's all looking great, right? Ferrari was now a superpower, winning world titles. Enzo Ferrari must have been incredibly wealthy, right? Well, guess what, guys? The company's accounts were in the red. Yes, you heard that right, in the red. Because, despite Ferrari becoming an aspiration for many, Enzo was so obsessed with quality and design that the company couldn't produce enough cars to meet the demand. In fact, models like the Ferrari 250 GTO were produced in such limited numbers that only 36 were ever made. So while Ferrari became a symbol of luxury and rarity for the wealthy, ironically, the company was at risk of bankruptcy. The entire focus of Enzo and his team was on racing programs and developing new race car models. And these activities were extremely expensive, requiring a lot of time, energy, and money. This was the bottleneck that was draining the company. Meanwhile, Enzo was known for his management style, which was said to intentionally pit drivers against each other within the same team. applying such pressure that some even lost their lives during races. All of this made the situation even harder for Ferrari. And by the late 1960s, the company was on the brink of bankruptcy. The question that naturally arises is, how did Enzo Ferrari manage to save his company? At first, he turned to Ford for financial backing, but, as you might have guessed, the deal fell through. Then, in 1969, Enzo Ferrari sold 50% of his company to Fiat. This partnership helped Ferrari in two major ways. One, Fiat provided the financial stability needed to continue developing new models and support racing programs. Two, with Fiat's support, Ferrari's production capacity doubled, increasing from 619 cars to 1,246. In the end, Fiat invested even more money into developing new models. It was during this time that Ferrari built a massive factory to expand its business. And that's when Ferrari's dream really started to take flight. Ferrari went on to win 200 Grand Prix races and 16 Constructors' Championships, becoming one of the most successful teams in the history of the sport. But here's the thing, even after all of this, as the decades went by, Ferrari started to be seen as just a normal Italian car brand. Yes, you heard that right, normal. And you might be wondering, why was it seen as just another regular Italian car? Because while Enzo believed the true beauty of a car was in its performance, not its exterior looks or luxury features, the new generation of the wealthy wanted cars that were elegant, even in their exterior design. So the market taught Enzo Ferrari that ego is the anesthesia that dulls the pain of stupidity. That's why Enzo had to step out of his comfort zone and begin collaborating with renowned designers from around the world. The result of these collaborations were some of the most beautiful cars in Ferrari's history. In 1984, Ferrari launched the Ferrari Testarossa, which became the best-selling Ferrari of the 20th century. And while most people retire at 60, Enzo Ferrari kept working on Ferrari until he was 90. This shows just how much he loved cars and engineering. But it was thanks to this passion that, ladies and gentlemen, a new era for Ferrari was born with the new president, Montezemolo. What Tim Cook did for Steve Jobs' legacy, Montezemolo did for Enzo Ferrari's legacy. And just like Tim Cook transformed Apple from a hardware company into a software company, Montezemolo transformed Ferrari from a car and racing company into a luxury brand and lifestyle. And today, you might be surprised to know that Ferrari sells products like perfumes, caps, and t-shirts at ridiculously high prices. The question now is, how is it possible for a car company to sell lifestyle products with higher margins than brands that specialize in the sector? That's where Ferrari's brilliant marketing strategy comes into play. This marketing strategy can be broken down into three key pillars. The first is visibility, the second is aspiration, and the third and final is a curious term called the halo effect. The first two pillars are pretty obvious. For visibility, Ferrari partnered with legendary drivers like Michael Schumacher, 7-time world champion, a man who introduced a generation of fans to the heart and soul of Formula One. One word can describe Michael: a hero. This partnership is considered one of the most iconic in F1 history. Schumacher joined Ferrari in 1996 and won 5 consecutive championships from 2000 to 2004. So in the 90s and early 2000s, when Michael Schumacher started winning, when he became a legend like Michael Jordan, it brought immense global visibility to Ferrari. The brand gained extraordinary popularity worldwide. Meanwhile, films like Fast and Furious, Bad Boys, and Italian Job began featuring Ferrari as a symbol of value and status, further boosting the aspirational appeal of the brand. And here's where the third pillar, the halo effect, comes into play. Did you know that there's a part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex? This part plays a crucial role in emotional and social cognitive processing. When we meet someone or encounter something, the prefrontal cortex helps us form a first impression based on the information we have. This initial impression can influence our judgments even if it's not directly related to the subject at hand. This is what's known as the halo effect in Ferrari's case. When we encounter a Ferrari lifestyle product, like a watch, a jacket, or even a pair of sunglasses, our prefrontal cortex quickly processes the available information. Now, what are these points of information? The first is the visual cue. We see the iconic Ferrari logo, which leads to a brand association. With the information and associations already in our brains, we obviously link the Ferrari logo to luxury, performance, and above all, exclusivity. This creates the perception of quality, and it means that even if the jacket, the perfume, or the watch is made from the same material as Nike or Adidas, we automatically think that a Ferrari product is better built and more durable than other brands. This is why Ferrari has an unmatched advantage, not just over other car manufacturers, but also over lifestyle brands worldwide. So thanks to an unwavering passion for cars and engineering, an obsession with perfect design, and finally brilliant brand positioning, Ferrari has become the most iconic car brand in the world. And now, let's get to the final part of this video. Let's talk about the business lessons we can learn from Ferrari's incredible rise. Lesson number 1, a great man once said, "Nothing in the world can take the place of good old-fashioned perseverance." Talent alone isn't enough because nothing is more common than talented people who fail to succeed. Genius isn't enough because unrecognized genius is practically a cliche. Only and exclusively, perseverance and determination are truly powerful. In this case, it was Enzo Ferrari's tireless passion and perseverance that turned a poor boy into a millionaire despite 2 world wars and the Great Depression. Lesson number 2, education isn't the result of attending a prestigious university, but the relentless drive to learn and master a skill. Even though Enzo dropped out of school, his unwavering drive to learn engineering turned him into one of the greatest automotive engineers the world has ever seen. This is the story of Ferrari's rise. I hope you've learned something new and valuable. If so, be sure to hit that like button and we'll see you in the next video.